Broadcasting from the Business Radio X studio in Alpharetta, it's time for Profit Sense with Bill McDermott.
Good morning. Welcome to Profit Sense. This podcast dives into the stories behind some of Atlanta's successful businesses and business owners and the professionals that advise them. We help local business leaders get the word out about the important work they're doing to serve their market, their community, and their profession, as well as discuss current issues that business owners are facing today across a wide variety of industries. I'm your host, Bill McDermott, and this show is presented by the Profitability Coach. When business owners want to increase their profitability, they often don't have the expertise to know where to start or what to do. I leverage my knowledge and relationships from 32 years in banking to identify the hurdles getting in the way and create a plan to deliver profitability they never thought possible. We have three great guests on the show today. I'm really excited. Andrew Sullivan, who's managing partner with Sullivan and Schlieman. Andrew, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And Ken Madren, CEO of PermaTherm. Ken, so glad you're here with us on Profit Sense.
Great to be here, Bill. Thanks for having me.
And Jim Pursley, CEO with Factory Automation Systems. Jim, welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. Good to be here.
Andrew, I'm going to start with you, managing partner, wealth advisor with Sullivan and Schlieman Wealth Management. You have done money management for years, but we're approaching year end. A lot of people are thinking about investing, thinking about the markets. So first question to you is, what steps should someone need to take for year-end planning?
Absolutely. Very important question. So one of the things that we are having discussions with our clients right now is reviewing your 401k and retirement accounts, making sure you're maxing out your contributions both to your 401k and your IRA or potentially Roth. It's a good time to rebalance your portfolios because so many of the market areas have gotten out of balance, either due to outperformance or underperformance. It's always an excellent time to sort of get things back into balance. Additionally, it's a good opportunity now to review any taxable losses you can take in your taxable portfolios so that you can write some of that off your potential taxes for this year. Also, we want to make sure that you are making charitable gifts out of your IRA if you're over 70 and a half. Want to also make sure that you're making your RMD distributions if you're 73 or greater. Penalties are pretty stiff if you do not. So those are good things to review. Also, you want to make sure that you're maxing out any potential gifts to heirs. You can make a gift to any individual of $17,000. It's a good opportunity to do that, to do some estate planning and gifting. Additionally, it's also a good opportunity to kind of review your beneficiaries on your IRAs, your Roths, insurance policies, any particular investments that you have that have beneficiaries. You need to review it, make sure you got primary. That's often common. People have primary, but they don't really check their secondary beneficiary. So it's an area sometimes we find that they're deficit in that area.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yep.
Anything else beyond that?
That's probably the main ones to be looking at.
So, for our listening audience, rebalancing sounds easy, but may not be as understandable. Could you talk a little bit specifically about that?
Oftentimes people pick an investment strategy and then they don't review it again. And so, for example, this year, large cap U.S. growth stocks have had a phenomenal year. In particular, technology's had a phenomenal year. And so if you've invested, say, a 20% allocation to any given one of these areas, and those allocations have now, because of performance, have gone up from 20% to 40% due to outperformance, oftentimes people let that ride, and they let it ride too long. So the rebalancing is to bring things back into check so that you're selling off some of your winners and then rebalancing to some of the less performing areas of the market, so that you don't get too much allocation too heavy in any particular one area.
Sure.
In the 401k arena, one of the benefits to these typical 401k programs, you can check a box in your 401k, and on an annual basis, it will automatically rebalance to your ideal allocation.
Okay.
In the non-accounts, the non-retirement accounts, you have to manually go in there and do that rebalancing.
Yeah. Those are excellent points. We're talking this morning with Andrew Sullivan, managing partner and wealth advisor, Sullivan and Schlieman Wealth Management. In this role, Andrew offers access to a full range of comprehensive financial services, including estate, financial, income planning, as well as strategic and tactical portfolio construction and management. Andrew, I kind of want to ask also, what are the most common issues or problems you see with people having financial success in retirement?
So when a client comes to us and says that they want to retire, there's typically two areas we look at. One, can they financially do it? And that's usually the easy question. It'll work or it won't work. The second thing we want to make sure of is that they have an act two, is defining what the rest of your life is going to look like as far as hobbies, different career paths, taking care of grandchildren. So it's a two-part. Can you financially retire, and can you mentally handle the retirement aspect of it? But the biggest challenge, too, we also see is I'll get a call on a Friday afternoon for someone that's in their 50s, and they said, oh, by the way, I retired last week. Was that a problem? No planning, no discussion. They've just made tough decisions. And oftentimes the answer to that is no, this financially will not work. So retiring too early is typically a big, big problem because they've not done the hard work of saving enough money to get them over that financial hump.
Yeah.
That's one issue. Second one is not saving enough while they're working to that retirement goal, right? Typically, you need to be saving 15 to 20% of your gross income on an annual basis to get you to that retirement goal. So a big, big issue. The other one is spending too much in retirement. And the general rule of thumb that's used in our world is 4 to 5% of your assets. As an example, if you have $1 million portfolio, that portfolio can sustain for you a $40,000 to $50,000 a year income for the rest of your life, sustained. But oftentimes people say, well, I'm going to spend a little bit more than that because this is a great one-time opportunity to take my grandkids to Disney World. Or it was an emergency. I love that excuse. It was an emergency. Your money doesn't ask any questions. It says, I'm going to offer you a job and I'm going to pay you $40,000 or $50,000 a year. You have to figure out how to make it work.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
And then additionally, the other issue we typically find to make someone unsuccessful in retirement is their children. Oftentimes, the tough discussions we have is that you have to fire your adult children. Some of these people not only keep themselves on their payroll in retirement, but they try to keep their family on the payroll. And it oftentimes leads to financial disaster.
Yeah.
So one of our jobs is to play the tough guy and deliver the bad news that some of these things have got to change.
I know for me, I'm kind of right there. I worked, I'll be 69 at my next birthday. Worked all my life. Can't always see chapter 2 as far as what does life look like. I know you and I have had these conversations together. Certainly for me and Martha, my wife, travel is in the mix. Grandkids are in the mix. As a matter of fact, we've got 2 new grandkids coming, which is exciting. But I think figuring out what that chapter 2 looks like is your mind is programmed going one way, but all of a sudden you're programmed going a different way, from work to really family, friends, hobbies, and so. But when the brain's been going one way for such a long period of time, it's kind of hard to just kind of turn and go a different direction, isn't it?
Well, it is. And one of the trends that we recommend people do is that most people don't just go from working in the old days where our parents or grandparents, they just had a retirement party and quit working and went off into the sunset. Most people now are working part-time, some sort of a part-time career, 2 to 3 days a week. And what they're doing is their main portfolio is supporting their lifestyle.
Yep.
And then that part-time work is paying for the extras.
Yeah.
So you and Martha want to take a cruise. Perfect. I'm going to work a couple of days a week this year, and we're going to pay for these extra things from that extra work and still remain productive.
Yeah. So I have a Mediterranean trip coming up in November too. So excited about that. Great comment. And I believe actually having a small amount of work keeps the mind active and good stuff like that. So Next question, what are some things that someone should do to set themselves up for general financial well-being?
Yep, good question. So again, a lot of discussions we have with clients in our regular reviews. One I've already mentioned earlier is making sure that your beneficiaries on life insurance, retirement accounts, pensions are up to date so that you've got that primary and secondary beneficiary. We see this often as a problem sometimes in a blended family where someone gets divorced, remarried, or a death of a spouse and then gets remarried. We've seen cases where the old spouse was named ex or deceased. Now the new spouse is cut out of the equation and it gets into a legal wrangling. So make sure your beneficiaries are up to date on these various accounts that you have. It's also making sure you've got adequate long-term care insurance in place. Just had a client the other day that had to go to an assisted living facility, memory care, $18,000 a month for care.
Wow.
Right. And you talk about devastating a set of assets or a portfolio at $18,000 a month. She does not have long-term care insurance, but it'll rip through some assets very quickly. So you've got to be prepared for that. That's probably the biggest risk that retirees have. It's not that I'm going to go on a cruise or that I'm going to retire. It's that long-term health care cost equation. Disability insurance for younger people, and then making sure you have life insurance in place while you have an up-and-coming family and dependents. Another one I would say is not having estate planning. This is probably one of the second biggest issues. It's amazing how many attorneys I talk to that don't have wills, powers of attorney in place.
Uh-oh.
So we strongly encourage people to have up-to-date wills and powers of attorney in place. Having proper liability coverage, property and casualty or umbrella policies in place. So do a property and casualty review with your insurance agent. Very important to do that probably every couple of years. This is really a dirty word, budget. Most people don't want to talk about a budget. Unfortunately, I find that most people spend more time planning their vacation than their finances.
Yeah.
But I emphasize a budget and set goals and stick to those goals on an annual basis. And then finally, hire the professional, right? If you need counseling and investment advice or estate planning, any of those things, use a professional. It's worth the expense. There are people that can manage their own affairs, but most people, again, they don't want to go down that path. They want to delegate that to someone that's a professional in those fields.
Sure.
Yep.
That makes perfect sense. We're talking this morning with Andrew Sullivan, who's the managing partner of Sullivan and Schlieman. Sullivan Schlieman Wealth Management is a comprehensive wealth planning firm established to serve affluent individuals and their families in an effort to plan for and pursue their financial goals. With a combined total of over 150 years of industry experience, they have the knowledge to develop a plan that's specific to your needs. Andrew, if someone wants to get in touch with you or with the firm, what's the best way for them to do that?
Sure. I'll just tell you, we've got two offices, one in Alpharetta and my partner's up in Gainesville. Best way to reach us is through either our email, which is sswmllc.com, or you can call the office at 678-867-0500.
Andrew, it's been great having you on the show. Thank you for sharing those tips. I made a mental note myself of a couple of those, so thanks again for coming on.
Thank you for having me on, Bill.
Now we're going to move to Ken Madren, CEO of PermaTherm. Ken's an 18-year CEO of PermaTherm, a business that has experienced challenge and growth over that time frame. And Ken, I just really want to start out with talking about communication and language, how we communicate, not only the words that we say, but also sometimes the nonverbal things that we say can be confusing. I want you to maybe share some of your experience in that area, communication and language. Did what you say, the person that heard it, was what you meant, and vice versa?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Thanks for having me here. And the question couldn't be more timely, the topic, I guess. As it relates to some of the things that we've gone through, we have had had ups and downs and challenges like every business does. Fortunately, we've grown nicely over the last 18 years. But with growth comes new processes, new machinery, new people. And what we found is we get comfortable in our language. We get comfortable with shop talk. We know our business, and we come up with acronyms and things that allow us to communicate internally real fluently. But when you bring somebody else in from the outside to help you grow your business, or you bring in maybe a new marketing partner, or you bring in a new customer, what we're reminded again and again is that shop talk and common words are dangerous. I think the common words are the bane of good communication. I'll use a word as simple as work. Everybody knows what work means. But inside of PermaTherm, we have a way that we work. And we paraphrase it by saying work. And when we bring in new people, or we bring in new partners, and we're talking about progressing a project through the pipeline, we use the term work it. And I guess children from a young age develop a definition of what work is. And they're different. Everybody works hard. The intention is to work hard. It's the way. So one of the things that we're doing at PermaTherm that is helping mitigate some past misunderstandings and miscommunications on the common words is we delete them. We don't use the word work, because work has so many definitions. Can you believe that? Can you believe that the word work has more than one definition?
Yeah.
It literally has a varied definition from each person who walks in the door. What time does my day start? What time does my day end? This is how I would work it. This is how you would work it. I'm working. And they are. So we change the names of things like that are critical paths and processes. And we make some pretty silly names out of things like work. For example, that word, when we talk shop, is now keyholing. It's time to keyhole. What's that? And we may be talking about progressing projects through our pipeline. You would typically go work the pipeline. And there's a lot of different ways to work the pipeline, but there's one way at PermaTherm. And we're talking about working the pipeline, but our best practices require that we keyhole the pipeline. Well, when you do that, you destabilize everybody who's supposed to keyhole the pipeline, because no one knows what that is. But when you build that definition together, everybody knows what that is. And we've found that to be an insidious eroder of progress. And we've found that simple element of take a word that everybody knows, throw it in the trash can as it relates to critical process, and come up with a new word, and everybody define it together. Now, really only a few people are leading that discussion, but you will find when it's a word like keyhole, everybody wants to understand it because their job is, and everybody does kind of add a piece or there. And in the end, you when you're talking, everybody knows what you're talking about. So in my career, it seemed like the silliest of things to do. Everybody knows what work is. It's been one of the most productive things. And there's other instances like that, but that's just one example of language and what we all think is good communication and how it can impede progress within your organization.
Yeah, that's such a good concept. And I will tell you, in my banking career, so bankers are notorious for throwing out terms or expressions, cash flow, EBITDA, working capital. I even coined it as bank speak. Bankers are so accustomed to speaking a language, but often their clients don't understand what they're talking about, but they don't take the time to explain what the words mean. And so there's this communication gap that's out there. I also had a similar situation with a client last week. They're doing an exit plan. It's a professional services firm, and I had two parallel paths that we were running for this firm. One was to sell to a strategic or a financial buyer. The other one was to sell to a coworker or management team. Well, I thought they knew what that meant, but really what they understood me to say is they weren't selling it to themselves, buying and selling between partners. They thought I was talking about them selling the firm to another management team out there. So I wasn't clear, or I thought I was clear, but in reality, I found out I wasn't. So I've had an experience somewhat similar, not alike, but somewhat similar.
I think it's a great parallel. Your banking analogy in particular, I think you've made a career out of.
Yep.
Talking to the business owners who know how to keyhole the pipeline, but don't know what my debt to equity ratio needs to be. But at the first meeting with the banker, they say, well, your debt to equity ratio and your days outstanding of cash and all that stuff looks good. We think we can bank you. And you leave that conversation as a business owner and you go, what are those things?
Yeah.
It's really a disconnect between the service provider and the customer, but it's natural. It's what we get comfortable in our own space and yeah, creates opportunity.
Really does. So we're talking this morning with Ken Madren, CEO of PermaTherm. PermaTherm is a Georgia-based manufacturer of insulated metal paddles, fabricated pipe insulation systems, and rigid insulating foams. It's been a very green-focused industry over the last quarter century because its customer demanded it before everyone else demanded it. And Ken, I'd like to get into a little bit about, I love a boat analogy. The rudder is really what steers the ship or the boat. And so keeping a tight grip on the rudder, wondering if that maybe brings about a story or an experience that you've had?
It does. It's interesting. This kind of ties back to our previous conversation about growth and going through cycles and expanding. Prior to being involved with PermaTherm, I worked in private equity and mergers and acquisitions, and we got an opportunity to look at a bunch of different companies, and most of them had pretty significant growth, or those that we got serious about, or growth potential. And that's what made them attractive. And in all of our due diligence over the years and in operating some of these companies, there was always this warning, this mantra, growth brings challenge. Well, that's pretty nebulous. Maybe as nebulous as a definition of work, what everybody's definition of work is. And having gone through a fair amount of growth and in cycles over the last 18 years, I think I have a better context for that. And I think the rudder analogy is the key. And in many cases, if a business has broken that glass ceiling threshold, that 10 million plus threshold, they did it on a set of foundational services or products that a market wanted, and allowed that business to get past that glass ceiling. And when you get past that, you've done something and you can probably go somewhere. So ideas get big about growth, product line expansions, personnel expansions, sales channel expansions, all of those things. And with all of those things, new comes. What I would say about that is what got you there will probably get you the rest of the way. That's your rudder. That's what got that business to that point, and that's probably the rudder that will get you all the way down the road to where that business is going. Not to mean that you shouldn't add new services and you shouldn't consider new practices, but you should remember the market that you serve, the way you serve, and the product that you serve. And as you hear about things that you could do, make sure that those things don't change your rudder, don't change your setter, or don't change the setting that you're heading. Stay focused on that rudder and stay a hold of it. Incorporate the things that might help you go, but don't let the rudder take a big turn. And in a lot of the M&A side of things, when things kind of went down, there were new markets ventured into that we weren't quite prepared for. And on a lot of the expansion, maybe back to some of those communication conversations, everybody wasn't speaking the same language. Everybody didn't know exactly where we're headed. Keep your hand on the rudder.
Yeah, excellent point. I'm reminded, so I'm dating myself when I say this, but I'm reminded of the movie City Slicker. Billy Crystal's character and Jack Palance's character are having one of those Wild West getaways, and Billy Crystal's character says, "So what's the meaning and purpose in life?" And Jack Palance's character holds up one finger. He said, "Just one thing." And Billy Crystal's character says, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "One thing." "Well, that's for you to decide." So part of keeping your hand on the rudder is making sure you remember, keep the main thing. And that's up for you to decide.
I think that's a great analogy.
Yeah. So we're all busy. Sometimes busyness is an enemy. Sometimes busyness is a friend. But I'm also curious. Being a CEO is hard. You've got so many things, people wanting some of your time, making decisions. You've made a comment to me that distraction never underestimates how distracting it can be. And so this almost ties into keeping a tight grip on the rudder, but how do you deal with distraction?
Not very well.
Me either. Maybe we should start a club.
Yeah, it does tie to the rudder question. There's subtle differences between the two. So, again, know where you're going and try to go there. But with growth comes complexity. With complexity, there are new understandings. You might be expanding a benefits package to be more attractive in recruiting employees. You might be adding pension plans. You might be changing your healthcare benefits. And as you grow and the number of souls involved in the packages that you offer grow, you've got to spend time on those things. And you either needed to delegate that to professionals who spend their time in that space, or know that big projects like that might move your rudder a little bit. Is it a distraction that's somehow not valuable to your business? No, it is valuable to your business. That's why you want to incorporate. You might bring in a new manufacturing process that would be valuable to your business that you might want to incorporate. But everything you've got to do to understand either that new manufacturing process or that new benefits package has the potential to distract. I guess if you're staffed for it, if you're delegated for it, if you know that this is going to be a distraction on the front end, maybe it's less distractive to the core management team. But those things need to be considered, because very often those balls of string start to unwind. And once you start to unwind them and understand everything that's required to incorporate this, it takes time. Is it distracting in a negative sense? It might move your rudder. Never underestimate what you're about to delve into. If it's new, there's an element of distraction, and that can be distracting.
I get it. Ken, it's been, I guess our relationship spans 14 years. You have done a fabulous job of building that company. I know you're a lifelong learner. I know you have a growth mindset. But for our listeners out there, if there is one piece of wisdom that you could impart to them, what do you think that might be right now?
I think that good companies are built on good teams that understand where the company is going and communicate well with each other to reach that point. And I think we've certainly had ups and downs, you and I together. And every time anything has really taken off and gone well, we've had a lot of those. Or anytime things have had a bump that we had to correct, that team pulled together, worked as a unit, found a common thread and a common language to solve an issue or grow. And I would say that's the key. Pour into your team, develop that team, communicate with that team, grow that team. Keep your hand on the rudder.
Yeah, I've seen so much success in the fact that those perceived stumbling blocks have been stepping stones. I've seen people continue to grow and flourish in your organization and stand on the shoulders of the ones that have come before them. For our listening audience out there, there may be someone who's looking for a good employer or a great culture, which PermaTherm has, or there might be a listener who needs some structural insulated panels. What's the best way for them to get in touch with you about either of those?
Any way you can find us, and the best way is www.permatherm.net or .com. There's email there. Our phone number is there. The phone number is 843-5363, 770 area code. The main line at the plant is 706-745-4500. We are looking forward to working with you on whatever your interest may be. Whether you're interested in being a teammate with us, we have plant operations in Monticello, Georgia, office operations in Covington, Georgia, another production facility in Covington, Georgia. Or if you'd like to talk about panels for your project, I have 9 people ready to help you get it done successfully.
Great. Ken's been an absolute delight to have you on Profit Sense today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
And now I turn to Jim Pursley, president of Factory Automation Systems. Jim, we're about a year and a half post celebrating a successful management buyout with you and your cohorts and buying out the prior managers. So you've been CEO. And before we get into what that's been like, I'd really like to hear maybe how do you see the manufacturing business in the current economic environment?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's still strong. We had some concerns about rising cost of money and economy slowing down, but we've not seen it on a whole taking a downward turn just yet. Always subject to change, and I think a lot of what's driving that is still the strong employment numbers. So our business is structured around automation and helping people manufacture things in all types of spaces, and traditionally through the years, that takes people to do that. And it's harder and harder these days to find people that you could trust to show up to work every day, that have the skills to do that, and especially so in the manufacturing space. And so our customers are, and the list keeps growing, from beyond the traditional just Fortune 500 companies, the Ford's, General Motors of the world, to smaller organizations that just can't find the people to do the work. And so we get calls for, we've had this process we've done for years. We're looking for a way to be able to do it. We can't run the equipment sometimes because we don't have people to show up to work to do it. So that's been a big part of our continued success, whether that's with robotic systems or just any other type of automation system. And it continues to to be even as large capital projects maybe are slowing down. Even a lot of upgrade work with existing customers are taking the opportunities to replace obsolete equipment if they've slowed down, and even customers who aren't seeing growth in their business in manufacturing still need the automation piece to drive costs down and to really backfill where you can't find the labor.
So obviously efficiency there in automation is key. In terms of where you might see opportunities for growth, is it mostly manufacturing plants looking for improved efficiency in operations?
Yeah, good question. So, it's a balance. There's some, there's some new capital expansion. There's been the past few years, the COVID years, the supply chain issues. Even a lot of the tariffs, people are pulling manufacturing back into North America. So there's some new capital projects that are expanding. Our real, that's our traditional business is more what we would call project type business, where we're seeing a lot of expansion and growth coming into the next years is really around services. And so that kind of covers all manner of things. So, people traditionally think of it as, if something's broken, come and fix it. But our focus is more on, helping people find efficiencies that they could have in their processes. Another big area is safety. So, the world of industrial safety continues to expand, and companies that wouldn't traditionally, you don't think of as being too concerned about that, are really spending the money and the effort to expand it in safety, keeping their employees safe around equipment. And we found a nice little niche in that market. We found there's a lot of companies that could tell you have a safety problem, and then there's other companies that will sell you, guards and things that go around it, but can't really tell you, what the problems are. And so we found a nice little niche, being able to come in, help identify, what areas might be hazards to your employees or, people in your facility, and then giving you a solution to that problem. So a start to finish solution in safety has really been a big area of growth for us in the last year, and seemingly into the next years.
Yeah, that's an interesting niche.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. We're talking today with Jim Pursley, president of Factory Automation Systems. Jim is president and CEO. He started with factory automation in 1997 in the electrical shop while in engineering school at Georgia Tech. Jim's worked in a variety of roles at the firm and eventually took over president in mid-2022. In October of 22, Jim and his three partners purchased factory automation from the founders of the company. And I was privileged to play a very small part in that.
A very important part, I might add. Don't sell yourself short, Bill.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate it. But it's now been a year and a half since the ownership transition. I've been dying to ask this question, but how has the experience been relative to your expectations?
Well, I don't know exactly what I expected. I know what the goals were to, really to maintain the culture and the structure of the business as we had it. And from that perspective, I think we've been very successful. That's a big focus when we spoke a year ago. Shortly after, that was the focus. And from that perspective, I think that we've been successful at that. From the things that you don't really plan for, there's surprises that come along the way,
Sure.
right? I mean, it's you've taken over from the founders of the company who did an outstanding job of getting everything prepared and put us in a great position to do that. But there's still things that you could never cover, no matter how many meetings or how much stuff you write down, of just little things that come up, through the first year that are surprises, and nothing huge, but you're still kind of feeling your way through it. And so now we've gotten a year into it, and we're feeling pretty good about it. We feel like we put together a good plan. We had good partners such as yourself to help us get the financing stuff in order. That was invaluable. Certainly, the way the interest rates have gone since we first started talking about that. If we had not had a good plan for that, we would not be in as strong a position as we're in right now. and, just making sure that you have good advice going into it, really made the surprises that we have not so insurmountable, and we could continue to run and grow our business. And we're seeing that success. We're poised for, our strongest year ever as a company. And the year before that was the strongest year we had up to that point. We see that continuing and being able to have a smooth transition. I mean, you see other companies where it doesn't always go this way, right? Without the proper planning and having everybody on board, rowing in the same direction, it could go sideways. But I'm knocking on wood. Hopefully I'll be able to say that again this time next year. But I would say the planning really paid off.
Yeah. And so I want to maybe change the thought process to the planning, because I find it is very common for business owners to be so busy working in their businesses when it comes time to do a management transition or a business sale. It takes a village, and certainly you and your partners put together a good team. You had a good attorney that was helping you with all the legalese involved in the contracts and the process. You had certainly someone giving you good accounting and tax advice, and of course, helping find the financing was a piece of that as well. But maybe talk a little bit from your perspective how important it was to have that team together and actually put together a cohesive plan where all of those aspects were in the mix.
Yeah, from a transition perspective, that's not our business. Like, I'm electrical engineer by nature. Most of the people, my business partners, are all engineers of some sort. So being able to have the right team together, man, you hit the nail on the head with that. To really make sure people are bringing the expertise that we lack on that. I think that really paid off, and even taking that perspective into, you kind of hinted on the working on the business instead of being in there working day to day. I mean, that same, getting the right people in the right seats to do what they need to do, and being able to count and rely on your team members, whether it's for a business transition or even day-to-day type things.
Sure.
It's not always easy to do. Certainly when you have a personal investment in what you're doing, it can be hard to let go of things. I'm very fortunate to have a great team to work with, whether it's on the business side of things, in the engineering, the fabrication shop, everything. I mean, I just am very pleased with the team that we had before the transition, and it's gotten even stronger since the transition. And it's vital. I mean, you can't, it's when you get to be a larger organization, you can't do everything. And, it's taken me a few years to, even prior to this to accept that. But, having a team in place that you could really rely on is just crucial to success.
And you talked a moment ago about making sure that you have the right people in the right seats. And I think certainly the table was set for you in the culture that had been built in that organization. And so you had the right people because those were the people that shared the same core values throughout the organization. And then it's always a challenge to get people in the right seats playing to their strengths. But that has been, I think, a hallmark of how factory automation has really performed through the years. So there wasn't much to do when the management team came in terms of building culture and building a cohesiveness, was there?
Yeah, that's right. And really part of the strategy of why what was important to the founders was to maintain that the people that were a part of it, myself, my business partners, we're not fresh off the street people that were, trying to figure out where the coffee pot was. I mean, we've all been with the company for a long time, and it's not just it's a personal thing for the founders. I believe that they wanted to see it continue. Certainly, the people that were going to be managing the company wanted to be able to maintain that, which was
Sure.
important of why we made the decision, collectively to go through the process as we did. And when you've been to our office, if you look down the walls, we have Christmas parties once a year. We put on a nice shirt and tie and have a Christmas party, and you'll see the same faces, throughout the years, and it takes time to build a team like that, and we continue to grow. I mean, you'll see faces come in and some of ours look older every year, but you continue to build on that team, and you can continue to bring people into the organization that fit the model of learning together and working together and keeping the kind of culture that is good not just for work in a working environment, but it's something that our customers value. Right? They could see the end result of the teamwork of what we put together in what we deliver to our customers. So it's important from all aspects to have that cohesiveness.
We're talking today with Jim Pursley, president of Factory Automation Systems. Factory Automation Systems is a leader in manufacturing controls, automation, software, and robotics. Founded in 1992, Factory Automation Systems provides automation solutions for manufacturers in a variety of industries, including building materials, food and beverage, and automotive parts. So, Jim, as kind of a parting comment for any aspiring CEOs out there, are there one or two bits of wisdom that maybe you have picked up in the last 18 months that you'd like to pass on to our listeners?
Find people that you could trust to work with. Make sure you have them, you're very clear in what your roles are for what everyone is doing, and have a plan of what everyone's going to do, and then execute.
Yeah, great advice. Jim, thanks so much for coming on Profit Sense today.
Thank you, Bill.
I want to take a minute to talk about 3 quick tips for perfecting your 2024 projections. Whether you've finished your 2024 projections or not, I'd like to share 3 tips you need to know to put the finishing touches on your forecast. Projections are critical to knowing whether your financial forecasts are realistic, especially if you will use these to obtain financing or attract investors. First, look for tendencies in your forecasting to gain insights on things you can do to improve next year. This could be things like, did you overestimate revenue and profits? Did you accurately forecast the timing of collections from clients and payments to vendors? Things like that. Second, compare your assumptions on revenue and expense growth compared to your historical performance and industry norms and standards. It's possible you're outperforming your peers in some areas, but underperforming in others. Know your tendencies. Third, forecast from the bottom up, not the top down. It's not how much you bill, but how much you keep. Plan profit first, then expenses, then revenue. Compare your forecasted revenue number based on what you discovered in your historical performance. If your revenue number is too high, then consider either adjusting your profit number or cutting expenses. Many business owners will have several rounds of assumptions before they end with a forecast they're comfortable with. Remember, it's important to forecast not only your income statement, but also your balance sheet and your cash flow statement. That gives you a complete picture of your business. Here's to a great 2024 for all of us. If you want to keep up with the latest in pro business news, follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram at The Profitability Coach. If you want to listen to past or future Profit Sense episodes, you can find us on ProfitSenseRadio.com. This is Profit Sense with Bill McDermott signing off. Make it a great day.